Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I wanted to wish you a happy new year as we're encouraged that the future looks bright, and wanted to use this last episode of 2024 as a review of the top downloaded episodes, as well as encouragement for 2025. I like to stay positive as I can. Welcome back to another episode where I help younger physicians decrease stress and increase income by transitioning from corporate to independent practices, even without any business experience. Thank you for listening to the Independent Physician's Blueprint, where we help physicians ditch corporate controls to reduce medical practice burnout and generate wealth beyond residency training. That's my mission. That's part of my mission in life, is to help others thrive, especially in the business of medicine. Lots have happened in 2024. Some good, some bad, as you know, if you've been listening. My dad left us to be with the Lord at the beginning of the year, and we ended up rebranding our podcast to the Independent Physician's Blueprint. And as you know, we were a different name before, and I think after reviewing the podcast and reviewing what we're doing, I think this name is definitely more apropos to what I want to happen to our colleagues in this world. Some health issues have creeped up. We had a presidential election and presidential candidate assassination attempt ×2, and lots more. But we can go on and on. But today's episode is about recapping some of the most downloaded episodes in 2024. We released a Crazy Medical Stories series, and one of the top downloads was the Crazy Medical Story about Casey Means in episode 81. In episode 58, we talked about IndeDocs with Dr. Marcello, who is doing great things in South Carolina. Episode 59 was about the Doctor Whisperer, who helps doctors become leaders, and shared her story. And that was a fascinating episode. I really liked that episode. Episode 78 was about physician side gigs and the top 10 physician side gigs that can help you generate income. So definitely going to review some of the highlights in that episode, as well as the fifth episode that we're going to review, and that's episode 96, which was a replay episode, which was interesting because it was about cancer care and helping physicians thrive through alternative treatments for cancer and the healing factors that are associated with that. And so we're going to start with episode 81. So here we go. So have you ever thought about leaving medical school? Have you ever thought about leaving residency or even fellowship training? Well, recently I heard an entire podcast with a doctor, a Stanford-trained doctor, undergrad, graduated with honors. She went to Stanford Medical School, and then sort of residency training program in ENT, and was going to be, she was top of her class, top of her game. And she ended up leaving medicine in the 5th year of her residency. The last year of residency, she left medicine. So she actually burned out before she was actually a practicing physician. And that was pretty crazy. I don't think I've ever heard of someone doing that. And so she took control of her life and went down another path. She's the author of Good Energy, where she describes her journey, of being top of her graduating class and becoming an MD, and left to fight against big corporate pharma and the food industry. I kind of sympathize with her because I think there are a lot of things that I see in medicine these days that really don't make sense, especially with processed foods, the number of medications that we're giving our patients and not necessarily helping them with nutrition, the obesity rate. And all of this is not happening in other places in the world. So we in the United States spend a ton of money on healthcare, and we don't get the results that other countries get. Look at our life expectancy in the United States. We talked about in the Blue Zone episode, where we ranked 46th or 47th in the world in terms of life expectancy. So Dr. Casey Means is her name, and she wrote the book Good Energy. I'm in the process of reading that book right now. Her mission, along with her brother, Callie Means, is aimed to transform the way healthcare is delivered in this country by attacking the root cause of disease. I've been recently exposed to that thought or that concept by my functional medicine doctor, who actually did a Nutrafol test on me. And I think I discussed that in one of the previous episodes, where I was able to discover that my mercury level was a little bit high. My B2 level was out of whack. I was deficient in vitamin C, all of which I would never have known if I hadn't done a specialized blood test and a swab test that was able to help me identify some of the root causes of things that may be causing dysfunction in my cells. So from the food that we eat, the water we drink, the toxins we expose ourselves to, the limited physical activity. These are things that I think are discussed, at least in the podcast that I heard with Casey on Tucker. It's crazy to hear her story, and the things that she's exposed in terms of numbers and the disease patterns that are related to the things we talked about above. So why is this crazy? Well, this is crazy because I don't know anyone who's left medical school or residency in the last year of residency. I don't know someone who's taken that control of their life, that much control over their lives, to become independent. So how can this help you? Well, if this is true, and if a lot of things that she's saying is true in this book, then medical school training just needs to be radically revised. We have to have more courses on nutrition, more courses on root cause analysis, which can really help us understand how to treat diseases. And obviously, there's no substitute to basic sciences and learning how the cells function, but there is room for improvement in how we treat diseases. We also need to be more curious about why in the U.S. we don't live as long as we do. As long as other people do in the rest of the world. It's almost like the thing that makes you say, something that Arsenio Hall used to say in his show. It's one of my favorite talk shows, actually. It was in the 80s or 90s, I think. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to Arsenio Hall, go on YouTube and maybe pull them up. But these things are things that make you go, I encourage you to read the book if you haven't. I'm in the process of reading it right now. And if you want to learn something different than what you've learned in medicine, and if you want to learn about root cause analysis and root causes of diseases, I think this is a good place to start. So in episode 58, we recapped some of the interviews that we did at a live event with Dr. Marcelo. He's a plastic surgeon in South Carolina who runs IndeDocs, which is an independent physician organization helping physicians who are practicing independent medicine thrive in what they do and just bring voices together that will encourage communities to share their stories and to share their experiences as they care for patients independent of corporate medicine. So here we go. Well, this is really exciting. Thank you, Dr. Hoffman, for having us on at your event. And this is
coming. Yeah, it's great to see you again.
Yeah, so we saw each other a couple of weeks ago on the podcast, right. And this is an awesome event, awesome venue too.
We're excited. We're looking forward. It's our first time around, so should be a good start.
So why IndeDocs?
Well, Independent Doctors of South Carolina is a group of or a tent of physicians, regardless of specialty, who are intent on really bringing doctors and patients back into control of their healthcare. As health systems have gotten bigger and bigger, medicine has gotten more depersonalized for patients and for physicians as well. You know, physicians are finding themselves in situations that are really kind of antithetical to the way we think and the way we act. So IndeDocs is going to change the way healthcare delivery is seen in South Carolina. And we're focused on educating the public, making sure that they start demanding services from independent physicians, which are much more cost effective and more value driven than the big systems, more personalized, and get physicians to start offering some things that were not available here in South Carolina because we've now repealed the Certificate of Need law. And finally, to get investment and get, industry to start seeing South Carolina as a great place to do business. So.
That's awesome. And we're standing right next to Blue Cross Blue Shield as well. So how did you get an insurance payer to come into this event?
So I think it's really important. A lot of practices are very dependent on the third party payment system. I mean, that's just the reality. A lot of practices are cash only and membership and those type of things. And then there's hybrid groups. But the reality is that Blue Cross is, the major player in South Carolina. And we have a great opportunity to work with them. They have now acknowledged that independent practices are more cost effective, better value than the same services provided by outpatient departments of hospitals. So if that's the case, then we ought to be working together to promote independent practices and independent physicians. So they're very interested. I think we're going to come up with a very innovative way of patients taking back control of their healthcare, whether they're insured or not.
That's awesome. This is a great event, and thank you for having this. And thank you for being a champion for this cause. Because second season of Practice Impossible is all about independent practices and independent physicians. Right. So you are the leader in South Carolina in helping physicians.
We're very intent on making IndeDocs really the organization that is championing the rights and the practice of independent medicine. So,
thank you again.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming.
South Carolina Representative Celeste Davis serves the citizens of the House District 100 and is the first woman to hold that seat. She has a vision for South Carolina and is a strong supporter of independent doctors. So, Representative Davis?
Yes.
So tell me, what brings you to IndeDocs?
Well, I'm here to hopefully talk about a few ideas that I have. One being preventative healthcare. I see a lot, especially in the people that I associate with, my friends, my sons. I think there's a real need, a real desire for people to start preventing disease and get ahead of it before it rules their life. And so I think there's a real need and I think it's time to talk about preventative healthcare. Also, I'm very interested in artificial intelligence and how that will, I believe, revolutionize the healthcare industry, because doctors are going to have access to so much information. And I really think diagnosis is going to be easier.
That's awesome. So how do you think IndeDocs is going to play a role in that?
I think the voice of IndeDocs and the voice of that independent doctor is going to be very important.
So what would be the one thing, if you had presidential powers today, you would change in healthcare?
Well, probably if I had presidential powers, one of the biggest things I would change would be the way we provide rural healthcare. I believe that the way we provide rural healthcare by building a hospital and then sort of stepping back and waiting for it all to happen, I think that's the wrong way. I think it's an outdated model. I really believe that we should take a more modular approach and bring in healthcare providers and facilities that meet the needs of that rural community.
Well, it sounds like you have a passion for this. So.
I do.
If you had executive powers, if you had a presidential power, what would be the one thing you'd change in healthcare today?
Wow. I do think the one thing is that I wish there was more transparency between the patient, the doctor, in terms of the financial relationship. I think that, we all have a good doctor-patient relationship from a medical standpoint, but I think that when you have all these third parties involved, I think that it just muddies the water a lot and makes I think it creates a lot of animosity. So I'd like there to be more of a free market type approach.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you
for doing this.
Thank you.
I think it's incredibly important for there to be a platform for independent physicians. You could debate about how many doctors now are still independent, 30% or whatever, but it's clearly less than half of the physicians in the country are now independently owned and operated practices. I just heard from my alma mater where I did my residency training just this year, University Hospitals of Cleveland, an inner city based primary care training program in Cleveland, one of the best in the country, just decided to close its primary care practice in the hospital because they said that primary care is no longer a hospital-based training specialty. You should only be trained in outpatient. So it's almost as if they're just giving up on the training of doctors to say the only reason doctors exist now is purely for referrals into the system. And so doctors don't need to be trained in the hospital just to refer patients on to specialists and into the system. A doctor is the same as a nurse practitioner, is the same as a physician assistant when your sole role is to refer patients into the system. I agree. Any of them are perfectly capable of seeing a patient and referring them on and triaging them to the right specialty. But if you're actually looking for the advanced management of patients, with full scope primary care, it is critical for independent doctors to work together, independent primary care, independent specialties for management of the patient. I think it's critical for the future of healthcare. And I think it's time for doctors and patients to work together to restore healthcare and bring it back where it belongs between the physician and the patient. Absolutely. I'm in total agreement. And so if you had presidential powers, what would be the first thing you did on day one? Oh, that's a long list. Oh, just what? The main one. Yeah, I mean, I'll just do this because it's low hanging fruit. I have been lobbying for years for health savings accounts to be recognized, to be spent for direct primary care memberships. That is something I lobbied at the federal level. It's something that we've taken to the White House and even had a presidential executive order signed to compel the IRS to recognize direct primary care as an eligible expense for health savings accounts. We've met with the Secretary of the Treasury over the issue and over a dozen Internal Revenue Service lawyers, and yet we still don't have formal recognition from the federal government over the treatment of DPC relationships. So I would do whatever I can within my power to finish that task that I've spent the better part of a decade trying to secure. So I served on the board of an HCA hospital for almost 15 years. I don't think it works within their structure. It's not their model. They provide excellent care with the system that exists today. I just think the system that exists today is broken and it's too expensive. People can't afford it. We can't afford it. As a country, we can't afford it. So I understand why HCA operates the way they do. But in my years, even from a board level position, I was not able to secure price transparency for cash-based surgeries. So for example, if I'm an HCA hospital, I'm not picking on HCA, insert any large corporate hospital in here. They're the big boys. They are at the moment, yes. So if HCA's operating room is booked out for 2 months at full price, full freight, they're again charge $120,000 for a surgery, maybe get paid $50,000. Why would they sell that same surgery to somebody else for $18,500? Now let's take that same argument to a rural hospital that has massive capacity. They're fully staffing an OR that's sitting with lots of empty slots on the schedule that provides excellent quality. But for them to get one additional case at $18,500 is a huge victory for them. So if you were to find a way to steer some of that low risk elective volume into a rural facility that's just gasping for air, and then also working in the arrangement like we did to restructure the employee health program around them utilizing and servicing hospital services to keep them brisk. I think there's a model there to save rural healthcare that I just don't think HCA and corporate medicine is prepared to do, because if HCA were to take that same exact approach to a rural hospital, they would not do that. What they would probably do is close down all the hospital beds, convert it into a freestanding emergency room as a source of referrals into the main facility is what they would likely do. What do you think about IndeDocs?
I think it's radical. I think it's more radical than the people in this room even understand.
I think I agree.
Blue Cross guy scared shitless. I don't care what he says. This scares him to death. Blue Cross wants nothing to do with me in Oklahoma, and I am 1/10 of what they pay the hospital for the same thing.
So why do you think they don't get it?
Because they make more money by taking a large charge and applying their discount because they skim. They charge for that discount. That's called claims repricing, and that's a big part of their revenue. And the other thing is the hospitals will tell them, we'll give you a 40% discount, but our volume or revenue has to be this number. And if you don't meet that trigger, then you only get a 20% discount.
Gotcha.
So then they shun me because they're not interested in cheaper and better. They make more money when it's not.
So do you see niches in the country and in areas where this could actually work? Because it works for you in Oklahoma.
37 state chapters of the Free Market Medical Association. Okay. It is.
So it's working.
This is like a time capsule. I mean, but it's going to happen here now. I mean, of all the states, if I were going to pick one or two where this would never happen, it would be South Carolina.
Wow.
And it's because of Blue Cross.
What about Florida?
No, it's already happening in Florida. That's Lee Gross.
Yeah, I got Lee Gross, but as far as other...
DeSoto, there are surgery centers that have copied me in Florida. No, Florida is much more friendly. South Carolina, North Carolina, Wisconsin, Alaska, they suck. They are really heavy-handed. But this is exciting.
This is super exciting.
This is groundbreaking.
In episode 59, we talked to, we had a conversation with Sharon Fekete, who is a renowned doctor whisperer, as she delves into the impact of her work with insurances and independent physicians and their crucial role in helping physicians with mental health in the workplace. Sharon is a great resource for physicians, and I think you'll like some of the snippets that we have from her episode.
But yeah, the doctor whisperer, that is me. Some people like to introduce me as, she calls herself the doctor whisperer, and I always go, no. I am the doctor whisperer. I whisper to them.
So how did you get that name?
So I was managing a pediatric practice, very close to where we are right now, actually, and one of the locations. And I was there 8 years. I was never meant to run one medical practice. I had come from New York. I moved to Tampa Bay 18 years ago. And before I moved here, I was director of operations for New York Medical. So there were 11 offices and 42 satellite offices.
Wow.
So we were busy.
What, New York Medical is Valhalla?
No.
No, that's
No. So it was based, our administrative offices were on Long Island.
Okay.
But we had offices from Hop Hog in Suffolk County all the way to the boogie down Bronx, So I loved it because there was so much going on a daily basis. There was always something very different. And it was a neurologist, orthopedist, internal med docs. And then we had acupuncturists, massage therapy, and physical therapy, which is really, I didn't know that was going to be what I was more attracted to. Mm-hmm. But I did know that the Eastern Western medicine was a very intriguing way to walk into the medical field in the business of medicine, because I did see a vast difference between the happiness level of one side versus the other.
Practitioner side or the patient side?
Like everybody, when I was walking in to see Dr. Kui, our acupuncturist, everybody was very calm, and was usually some Buddha and some rolling water. And he would tell me to come, Sharon, you look stressed. Let me put some of these in your ear. So, he was constantly treating all of us. It was just very calm, a meditative type. And then when you went to the neurology and orthopedic side, there was a lot of yelling. There was a lot of
patients
stress.
Or doctors?
Doctors. Yeah.
So they weren't whispering.
Nobody was whispering, but that is how when it came time to just circle back to how I got to be the doctor whisperer, is that I was constantly whispering in their ears, like, you're not good at hiring, man. Like, I love you. I think you're a fantastic physician, but hiring is not your strong suit, or PR is not your strong suit, or marketing is not your strong suit. So I would always kind of lower the tone, because, I developed trust with a lot of the physicians that I worked with. I'd worked with so many in so many different specialties. And, I just realized the pattern was that physicians are really, really phenomenal at so many things: saving lives, helping others, confrontation, not always great, navigating through business, not always great, and nor is anybody supposed to be if that's not what you studied, right? If that's not your specialty. So I just saw that was a common denominator. So after I ran a pediatric practice for 8 years, I decided to branch out on my own, because the thing that I realized was that all doctors needed my help, not just the ones that I was working for. Because it didn't matter if it was an internal med doc, an acupuncturist, a neurosurgeon. It was the same across the board.
Yeah. And it's similar to the thought process that I had when I nearly burned out a couple of years ago and, crashed and burned in my life. But I found that there's nowhere for doctors to go to understand that they need to get help from others that have done it before, that are not doctors, that are business people. Mm-hmm. And it was a common theme, even in our guests who are non-doctors, who say that physicians don't understand and know the business of medicine. And it was just, and it still is that. And so I think we have similar missions, which is why it's great to connect with you and kind of show you what my vision is here with the property, and trying to determine, how we can create a space for physicians to come in and de-stress, maybe go out in the lake or do some kayaking or, do some gardening. And so what are you doing now? Are you consulting? You're a speaker, and you're an author, and are you writing any more books?
Yes. So, I'll bring you to what happened in 2019 with writing this book, The Broken Road to Mental Health in Life and in Business, because it all intersects with what I was doing for a living as the doctor whisperer. So I was consulting for physicians from Tampa Bay to Chicago, New York. I still have one of my favorite doctors that I consult. I'll be talking to her tomorrow morning at 7:30, my physician in New York City, integrative medicine doctor. And what I was realizing when I was restructuring these medical practices was that I would meet with the staff. Part of what I wanted to always do, yes, I would get hired maybe to help them grow their practice or restructure it. But what I realized is the employees were going to really give me the answers of what was wrong within the practice. So I would meet with all of them, and I would always ask them 5 questions. And one of those 5 questions was, how do you like to be rewarded? And 9 times out of 10, somebody would cry in front of me, who they just met me 20 minutes ago. And they were sharing about how nobody ever says good morning or thank you or I appreciate you. And I think after dealing with that in so many practices, I really started to just see a pattern of how there's not a lot of opportunity for people to be thanked or be acknowledged or be able to be who they are in their personal life and in their business life. That if they were suffering from a loss or they had gotten divorced or they lost their father and they had to come to work, a week later and still suffering the pain, that there was no space for that there was just like, okay, you're back to work now, So it was difficult to see that. And what I found was the physicians too were really struggling and stressed, overworked. A lot of physicians, as you know, have gone into medical school and gone through the whole process and started seeing patients. And it wasn't anything like what they dreamed about when they were a kid, when they decided that they wanted to dedicate their lives to saving others. Because the business of medicine is very difficult.
Yeah.
And if that's not set up and if nobody is walking you through that and helping you navigate through that, that turns into burnout, anger, stress, suicide, depression, all the things, alcoholism, addiction. So in 2019, I decided to share about myself. I was doing an event. I had all of my physician clients and I was the MC. And I looked into the audience and I saw a few people that I knew that had lost family members to suicide and to addiction. And these were very prominent, successful people in business. And I just decided to tell everybody that I was 25 years sober and that I had suffered before from depression. And then I, said, well, I might as well tell everybody now. So I wrote a book and then really just shifted my focus towards talking more about mental health, especially in the workplace.
Yeah.
Because I think we've gotten a lot better, but we certainly have a lot more work to do.
Yeah, and I think if we're not stable, if we're not strong as physicians and as the leaders in the practice,
Mm-hmm.
and even in the community in some respects, and how do we expect the U.S. life expectancy to increase?
Right.
I think this is one of the first years last year was the first time it actually decreased.
Mm-hmm.
Some may say it's related to COVID, but lifestyle, foods that we eat,
Mm-hmm.
we're nowhere near the number one country in the world.
No.
We rank, I think, 47th in the world in terms of life expectancy.
Yeah.
Okinawa, Japan, Sardinia, Italy, Costa Rica,
Mm.
All these countries, they live longer than we do. And I think, like you said, stress, physicians committing suicide 1.8 times more than the general population. And there's a statistic that actually multiplies that statistic to the number of people that are affected by that suicide.
Mm.
It's multiplied tenfold sometimes.
Yeah.
So you lose a physician that has 1,000 patients, 2,000 patients. What happens to those patients?
Yeah.
So I commend you.
Thank
For writing the book and sharing your story, because I think that's how we get transformation. That's how we realize that we're not alone.
Yeah.
And you certainly shared a lot of stories that I don't know if I could share I was in that situation. So again, kudos to you.
Well, thank you.
So
Well,
what do you think? I'm sorry.
No, I just want to, I have to say, because I didn't know this myself until I wrote my book in 2019, that because I was depressed and tried to take my own life when I was 21 years old, I got the right help that I needed. It was my father's EAP counselor at New York Hospital. Thank goodness for employee assistance programs. And hence why I have such a passion about talking about mental health in the workplace, because if it wasn't for that man, I wouldn't be sitting across from you right now having this conversation.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that even the language that we use, trying not to say commit suicide, but died by suicide, because it does sound like an act of like a crime. And we all know, whether we want to admit it or not, that if we know somebody that has lost somebody in their lives by suicide, there's not as many people showing up with a casserole. There's a lot of whispering. How did they do it? How did he do it? How did she do it? And there's a lot of ignorance surrounding this in particular. And it's a shame, because it shouldn't be treated. I just heard of a trauma surgeon whose son took his own life just last week. And I wonder how this surgeon is going to go back to work so soon. So I needed to interject that. Sorry. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So what do you think was one thing that helped you overcome? You mentioned the EAP, or the Employee Assistance Program.
Yep.
And some big companies have this program, but what about the small companies? If you didn't have that, what would you think that, aside from that, helped you?
What helped me personally?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I got sober. So I got sober at 21 years old. I had been to 2 rehabs, a halfway house, and I blacked out at 19 and ended up from New York to Detroit, Michigan, and stayed there for 2.5 years. So I really shouldn't be sitting across from you right now. I was homeless. I was addicted. It was a bad scene. And it's a miracle that when I came back, that I had the love of my family. I had recovery, 12-step recovery. And I had this wonderful EAP counselor from my father's job. My father worked at New York Hospital for 42 years. And he was seeing this man while I was away in Michigan, because he was the boss.
Yeah.
And so he had, thank goodness, he had this man that he was able to talk to while his daughter was, he didn't know if I was dead or alive. So that's what helped me. But yes, not every company can afford EAPs. Not every company even realizes the impact that they can have on the entire family, because those benefits just aren't talked about a lot. When we think about, we're recording this in November, and that's always the time where, we start looking at insurance plans, right?
Yeah.
And we talk about the co-payments and the deductibles and all of those things, but we don't talk enough about the mental health benefits that come with our plans. So it always comes down to leadership and vulnerability. Not everybody is going to talk about as freely as I have about what happened to me, and I don't expect anybody to. But I do expect leaders to speak about how difficult it can be to be a human being, to be in life, to go through tragedy. We all went through an eruptive time from 2020 till, not too long ago. So the world has taken on many different ways of working and living. So we have to address them. We have to talk about them. So leadership, vulnerability, and communication are always the three things that I talk about when I am speaking about mental health in the workplace, because most people, I go into a lot of businesses and a lot of people don't know certain things about people that they've been working with for years.
Yeah.
Years.
Yeah.
And I can go in and find out in 20 minutes.
Well, you have to care. I mean, I guess
Sure.
to some degree you have to care and not treat people like they're just, staff, or they're just people just taking vitals or drawing blood. So there has to be some level of empathy from this part of the provider, the physician. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's just realizing that you have the time to do it, mm-hmm. and not just think about yourself. You have to think about the other person. Mm-hmm. And I find physicians don't even have staff meetings or team meetings. And that's something I implemented a couple of years ago, where every week we met, and until it got to a point where I think I was over managing as a physician. So my administrator actually fired me and said, I'll do the meetings.
Congratulations to your administrator.
And we'll meet once a month. And it has helped. And it's humbling, but I get to see that they can go to someone else and not have everything come to me.
Yeah.
And that's something I learned. I learned the hard way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think people realize how impactful it can be when somebody just says, "Hi, how are you today?"
Yeah.
And then participate in some active listening, where you're not waiting for your turn to speak. Like that to me has been so amazing to witness, that I would have my physicians with me, and we'd have staff, and we'd be talking to each other. And I finally am getting somebody to open up about what's going on in the practice, what's happening, what's wrong, and how we can fix it. Mm-hmm. And they're being interrupted. And that is so disempowering. And then that person will eventually leave. That's what happens. Yeah. When I hear that there's turnover within a practice, I know what the problem is. It's not the pay. Normally.
Yeah. It's a person that you're working with.
It's like, who is doing the hiring, and what kind of person is that? Are they an empathetic person? Are they going to get to know? Are they going to ask the right questions on the interview? So there's so many things that we could do to help, but we have to start with being willing to ask people how they are and who they are. And so do you do this in person? You said you had a couple of clinics in Chicago and yes, I don't anymore. Okay. The days of me restructuring and watching people cry in front of me are over. Okay. That's just my, it would take a special type of practice to encourage me to want to come back and do that, because it does take a lot of self-awareness to know that you don't know how to fix something inside of something that you own. Yeah. And especially if they're successful. I think one of the biggest problems with a lot of medical practices is that they're successful, they're making money. Mm-hmm. They don't need to change anything. They're doing okay. And then that's great for them. You can imagine I have so many people, Sharon, I have this doctor I want you to meet. And I'm like, please don't. Whatever you do, do not introduce me to that doctor, because I am going to be like a therapist. Like you need to know that you need help.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you the truth. That's the only reason why I even called myself the Doctor Whisperer, because I was whispering the truth to them.
Mm-hmm.
So many people, because of, the wonderful work that you do. And I value so much physicians, that you and so many that I've worked with, amazing. You're amazing human beings. And then you have like all these other talents, like you're doing a podcast and all this great equipment.
Well, I'm crazy.
It's
crazy.
Wonderful. But you're so like brilliant. And then you just take on too much sometimes.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And I think it's great when there's other people that can help navigate. So I like to do it more on the phone or on Zoom. And consult instead of doing the going in and hiring and all of that, because that really does take somebody that's really, really understanding that that's not their level of expertise.
Mm-hmm.
So
what happens when you're trying, you have the right things in place, and now maybe speaking for myself, and you're doing the things that you feel that you've learned, that I've learned, and we're still having the turnover, still having people who are not happy or not satisfied. When do you know it's you versus the person that you hired?
Well, in my opinion, the only person that is to blame is the person that owns a practice.
Okay. Because
if they're doing the hiring or they're trusting the person that they hired to do the hiring, it always falls back on the owner. So, and the truth is, the interesting thing about hiring is that it's like we're taking a chance. We don't know what somebody's going to be like when they start working for us. Everybody presents well at an interview.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they give references of their 3 best friends or their mom. It's almost comical, So to me, it's always been about like, who is doing the hiring? Okay. So how good is this person at hiring? Because hiring is a skill. Hiring is really like, and if somebody's not good at it, they have to be able to say, you know what, I've made some serious mistakes here. I might not be the best suited to do this job. Let me have somebody else do it and see what we can do. And then when we realize that somebody isn't best suited for a job, we have to be willing to let them go. There's one thing that I see more in the medical industry than any other industry is keeping people.
Yeah.
That we know are miserable Mary or turnover Tom. We know, but we keep them because we'd rather that. What is that saying about the devil is better? Oh God, I'm horrible at sayings. My husband, if he was listening right now, would be cracking up. Like, why do you bother doing that, Sharon? You could never remember a saying. But it's really true. Like, when I joined the pediatric practice that I worked in many years ago, there had been people there for 20, 30, 40, and one was there for 50 years. No joke. And I was told when I started, Sharon, like a lot of these guys, they don't work very hard, but this one's been here for this long, and this one's grandson has, autism, and they take on all of the issues of the staff and their families.
Yeah.
But it's that's why I say in life and in business, right?
Yeah.
We have to be willing to do hard things in the business world. If we want to run a business, then we have to think of a medical practice as one too, because it is one.
Yeah, you're right. And I think one of the things is I remember, if I can get this thing right, hire slow, fire fast.
Yes, Gary Vaynerchuk says that all the time.
I don't know who that is, but maybe I should read his
book. You don't?
I have to read his book.
Wow. Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary V. It's fantastic.
Gary V.
Yes.
I have to read him. I'll read the book. So what are you doing these days aside from the practice? What do you do for fun? Because I know you're down in Clearwater, so I don't know if you're on the beach or...
I'm close to it. I'm right over the bridge there. So I ride my bike. I ride about 16 miles every weekend.
Nice.
I'm a mental health workout junkie. So I have a very serious regimen every day because of what I have to do for a living. So my mornings are get up, work out, meditate, take a walk in nature if I can, just like your beautiful outside here is like the perfect place that I would zone in on wanting to take a walk around because it's so pretty and peaceful. So yeah, I mean, I'm all about exercise and, you know, I'm kind of nerdy. I've been sober 29 years. So like, I don't party. You know, I don't go to bars. I don't do any of those things, but I really, really enjoy my husband and my family. My parents live around the corner from me.
Oh, so they moved down from New York.
They followed me. Yes, they did. Yes, they are here. No, they've been here. They've lived 1.5 miles around the corner for a while now. Yes.
I'm sure your dad's happy.
Yeah, he is. He is.
Still going to meetings?
Oh my God. Yeah. I run a big book study every Friday morning for women. And
so tell me about that. So as you've been sober 28 years, is that also the 28 years of going to meetings and doing things related to that?
I have never forgotten where I came from. You know, I got sober at 21 years old. I'm 51. I'll be 30 years sober next year, God willing.
Congratulations.
But the only reason that I am is because I never stopped going and I never stopped listening to what all those old timers told me when I came in at 21 years old. You know, that if you forget where you came from, you're doomed to repeat. So I've always stayed vigilant. And I truly believe that, you know, being of service to somebody else is the greatest gift in the world. So how selfish of me not to give back what was so freely given. So I will forever, I hope one day at a time, be a woman of service, of her word. If I say I'm going to be somewhere, I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for that recovery journey because it really has taught me how to be a better businesswoman. Everything that I've learned in business is because of my recovery.
Explain that.
So, you know, if it was up to me, everybody would be mandated to go into learning about how just to be like a better person. And I, you know, of course, there's so many jokes or stories about what it's like to be a member of a 12-step program, but nobody wants to go. I wasn't skipping my way as a 21-year-old who finally became legal to drink to start getting sober. So, but what I learned there was, you know, all of the things that all the self-help books talk about, you know, being impeccable with your word, showing up, helping others, making amends to somebody, looking somebody in the eye if you've done something wrong and saying, I apologize. And how can I make this better? Like I tell people in business too, I say, listen, if you're a leader and you make a mistake and you're the boss, you know how powerful it would be if you sat that person down and said, I really regret raising my voice to you today. And what can I do to make it up to you? Like, come on, they'd fall off their chair. Yeah. You know, but those things that I learned about business, I learned in recovery. I just learned how to be a better human being.
Yeah.
You know, and because of that, you know, I've been able to encourage others to just, you know, be who they are, no judgments, you know, and people open up to you when you're vulnerable. That's, you know, you did a great show. I'm sorry, I can't remember his name, but it was all about shame and vulnerability, but it was such a great episode. And
Richard Shaw.
Yeah,
Richard Shaw.
It's so good, but it's so true. You know, I mean, the only reason that people feel so comfortable opening up to me is because I've put it all out there.
Yeah.
There's nothing, I'm never going to judge. How could I judge you? I was homeless at one point in my life. So yeah, it's just,
you are enough. I remember one of the things that he kept saying is, you're enough.
You are.
You are enough.
I am. And no amount of money in the world is ever going to replace the great joy that I feel of having the opportunity for another day every day. You know, I mean, it's real. When you have survived, you know, knocking on that door of death and destruction and despair, you're grateful for every horse you get to drive by and see when you're driving from, you know, Pinellas County here. So yeah, it's just a beautiful gift. I'm so grateful for recovery. And I also don't think it's the only way. I think that there's many ways that people could, you know, become better people.
Yeah, that's your way. And
Yeah.
your way is not unsimilar to other ways of getting better. It's just more of a very systematic way.
Yeah.
And it gives you the steps. It's like the baby steps in finances, and just like, things that we do that's repetitious and involve community.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you transform.
Yeah.
You can't transform in a corner by yourself.
No.
Because people have to be around to show you the holes in your recovery and the things that you're doing, the things that may tempt you, places you may go. So those are things you can't get by yourself.
No. And if I didn't write my book, I would have never faced all of the trauma that I went through when I was a young woman.
Yeah.
I never spoke about it because, I learned growing up in New York and from wonderful Irish immigrant parents in my family, like so many people have it so much worse off. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. I was taught by the CEO of New York Medical that you wear a red power suit. And if somebody asks you a question and you don't know the answer, don't ever tell them that you don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, I don't know. It's one of my favorite things to say. I don't know.
Yeah, you're human.
Yes.
Ooh.
I don't know everything.
I had a resident once tell me, it was a group, I think I was third year medical student. And he said, if you're not sicker than the sickest patient on this ward, you better show up to work. And we're all looking around like, man, these are some sick patients.
Right.
So you're trained to be invincible.
I know.
And if you don't know, you don't figure it out. Otherwise, we're going to grade you on that. And that's just a medical training. I think that's one of the flaws in medical training is that they teach us to be invincible. They teach us we can know everything. We should know everything. And that's not business, how business is run.
Mm-hmm.
And many of those professors are, professors.
Yeah.
They're not business owners. And if they were business owners, they'd run back to their universities because they couldn't run a business.
Right. I'm hoping it's getting better. Being a resident, I can't even imagine that it's still the same. I'm going to say that I'm 20 years out, 25 years out, 23 years out. I can't remember. 97 when I graduated. Wow.
20 years. 20
yeah.
years.
It's been a while.
But yeah, some of them are still coming out not wanting to be in private practice, not wanting to be an outpatient because they don't want to have to answer a call in the middle of the night.
Right. Yeah.
Or the first question they ask when they're asking an interview, how much time do I have off?
Right.
I don't know. I haven't taken a day off in years now. Now, of course, taking a day off is, we've gone on vacation and things, but you're always available to your practice. Mm-hmm. But many of the physicians that I interview are not wanting to be tied down to practice. They don't really have that love, that passion. Mm. So what they do is they go into hospital medicine, where they clock in, clock out 7 days later, and don't want to have to deal with anything.
Yeah.
So, and same with the emergency room. And I don't want to be Debbie Downer in this podcast episode, but it's just reality of what I've seen over the past couple of years. So what are you seeing in the future of healthcare? So you've seen it for the past 20 years, what you've done, you've consulted. What do you see for the future?
Well, hopefully people start. One thing I would really wish, I haven't gotten to say this in a long time, but when I was running my pediatric practice, I opened a night division because I realized that we were sending all of our patients to another practice at night. I thought, well, my kid gets sick at night. Maybe we should open at night. And this practice in particular was open at 6:30 in the morning. We never closed. We opened 365 days a year. To this day, it's still open 365 days a year on Christmas every day. Now, only a few hours in the morning. But the fact that people could come to the office before they had to go to work was huge. So that's why the practice was so successful and had been around for so long. And then when we opened a night division, we were just, had the market cornered, because we have to start thinking more about how the human beings live their lives. Mm-hmm. So nothing is more frustrating to me than me calling a medical office during my lunch hour to try to make an appointment. And I get an answering service. It just doesn't make any sense to me because most people work for a living today. Yeah. There's not a lot of people that don't have to work. And I'm so happy for you that don't. I really am. But we have to adjust more to like how life is moving and shifting. Like we are just in such a different world now with telehealth and look at us. We have headsets on. There's microphones in front of us. People will be able to look at this wherever they get their podcast or listen to it or see it on video. We have to adapt to the way the world is moving. So in my world, I would just hope that the medical industry would start really assessing what it looks like today. And if we've all realized that mental health is important, maybe we could incorporate that somehow into our practice. Maybe we could, bring on a licensed therapist into our medical practice as well. I like more of a cohesive world, and I think that there's so many opportunities, but I would love nothing more to see just if we could just start with the hours of operations for medical offices. I've never been able to understand why.
The 8 to 5, 9 to 5. And so
doesn't make sense.
That may help the patients, but how do we help the doctors?
Yeah. You hire wonderful extenders, which we know they don't like to be called extenders. We're calling, what are we, nurse practitioners
or
physician's assistants.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I did. So when I wanted to open the night division, I knew my doctors didn't want to work at night. So I said, great. I said, well, I'm going to figure this out. So I'm going to figure out how to get a nurse practitioner in here and an evening staff. And that was something that they had never done. The practice had been open forever, but I wanted them to retire one day. That was my goal. I wanted them to be happy. I wanted them to own a building, own some real estate.
Powerful.
Right?
Yes.
And then I wanted them to have somebody working inside of their organization that was making them money. Wow, what a concept.
Yeah, what a concept.
And we did it. And so I think there are many creative ways to do it, but we have to be willing to take risks.
Yeah.
It's doing things the same all the time isn't a great idea. And mistakes that happen are fantastic because we learn from them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I hope that answered your question.
I think it did. And it's from what I got from it was that we need to, in the future of medicine, look to do things that are going to be conducive to the population's needs.
Yes.
So, well, what I see is hospitals are coming in and doing that for them.
Mm-hmm.
How do we stop the hospitals from doing that?
I don't go anywhere near hospitals. As a matter
well, they're buying urgent cares.
Yeah.
They are opening up late.
Mm-hmm.
They're hiring extenders.
Mm-hmm.
So do you see that these physicians are just going to give up and not want to do the business of medicine, give it to the hospitals? Or do you see a trend in, I don't want to be owned by the hospital systems and I want to do it myself?
Well, lucky that you're asking me this question because I've only worked with physicians that have broken out of the corporate model.
Okay.
So I've never worked with a physician that accepts insurance ever in 10 years. Wait. That's not true. I did work with an orthopedic group in Orlando once. So I only work with physicians that don't want to accept insurance anymore.
Okay.
They want to be able to spend more time with their patients.
I missed that point maybe.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's my doctor that I'm speaking to tomorrow. She's an integrative medicine physician on Park Avenue in Manhattan.
Nice.
She hasn't accepted insurance in years, not even Medicare. And she's doing, very well. Yeah. It comes with the regular stuff. I mean, she works with VAs now. You know how long it took me to get her to work with a VA that transcribes and allows her an opportunity not to fight with the electronic health records. There's a lot that can be done, but it takes a lot of strategic planning in order for that to happen. So I love nothing more than a doctor that's ready to give up the insurance model. Whew. Because there's so many people that want to have great medical care. I'm willing to pay for great medical care. And I will tell you that my husband works for UPS for 31 years. we've all seen the TikTok videos about how much money they're making. It's a funny joke now, but they have the greatest health insurance. I pay for care out of my pocket. I go see a therapist. I pay him cash. I drive to St. Petersburg to see him in person because I know I'm going to get great care. Now, listen, disclaimer alert, everybody. That doesn't mean that insurance isn't okay. But in my opinion, I've never gotten great care with my insurance card. And Starbucks doesn't mean as much to me as my health. So I won't do to the Starbies, and I will take care of my health. So I think there's so much. I work with a lot of therapists that don't accept insurance and physicians, and I'm all about opening up meditation spaces and places that are really going to help. And you asked too about like what could help doctors. I'll tell you what can help doctors. Hanging out in your backyard on retreat, that could help.
Yes.
Like very seriously, I don't know any other profession that needs it more. Like all you do is give to others. So if you are not serving yourself first, you cannot give to others.
Absolutely.
Like burnout, yes, that's a whole new fad term I hear about all the time. There's even like an ICD-10 code about burnout.
Is there?
Yeah, there is. Yeah. But it's a real thing. So I think that we need to really reconsider. Now, listen, you and I both know there's not a lot of people that can come out of med school that can just afford to open up their own business. Most join a hospital or join a big group. I get that because the loans are outrageous.
Yeah.
Take a deep breath with that one, right? So
unless you get it forgiven by your our administration,
right?
You may not even go there.
So I think that it's a very bold thing to do, but I say do it. I say credit card, debt it up.
Practice impossible.
Yes. Practice impossible. Yes. You know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about. That season 2 is all about that. Yeah. And I didn't actually, it didn't click until you told me that that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's what people are looking for. They need that guidance because there's a lot of physicians are afraid of doing it. Mm-hmm. And I've thought about it, to be honest. I'm still seeing insured patients, and I love what I do. Mm-hmm. We do very well. And I think like in any profession, there's going to be a need for someone to take care of grandma and grandpa.
Yep.
The 65 plus year old patients who need care.
Yes.
I want to provide that care. But there are some physicians who don't want to. Mm-hmm. So we should teach them how to do it.
Right.
So that they're not stuck doing something that they don't want to do.
Right.
In a system that they don't understand.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, it's heartbreaking for me sometimes to tell the doctors that I charge more than they do for a consult. Mm-hmm. But that's the truth.
Yeah.
And it's not because I dropped out of freaking college, people.
Yeah.
I wrote about it in my book. It's not, and I'm not proud or not proud about it. The fact is that I was running businesses. So I realized that I was going to learn more running the business than I was going to learn in that college that I was attending at night while I was running this business. So there's so much. I mean, there's so many things that physicians can do. Sometimes I feel like y'all don't know sometimes the value that you have because of probably the system and what we're told and that you should do it this way and blah, blah, blah. But
no, that's what we're here for. We're here to educate. We're here to let them know that there is a possibility of doing it other ways and being happy and being successful and being, helping others in a way that's meaningful as opposed to giving pills and pushing drugs. And there is other ways of doing things, and your time is valuable.
Yes.
And I had someone reach out to me on LinkedIn and wanted me to consult on Medicare Advantage plans and the industry. And they said, please fill out this form. So I fill out the form, and at the end it says, what is your fee? And default fee is $125 an hour. Like, no. So they sent me the contract with $125. I said, are you kidding me?
Right.
I'm going to give you an hour of my time after 23 years of experience. No, the rate is actually $500 an hour.
There you go.
And it was as if it was nothing for them.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that should boggle your mind.
You have to ask for it.
You have to ask for it.
If you believe you're worth it.
You should.
Yes, of course.
If you're worth $1,000 an hour, sure.
Amen. Yes. And you did. You do deserve it.
Of course I do. Of course we do.
Yes.
So I thank you for that.
No, I'm so proud that you're doing the work that you're doing. And I am hopeful, and I'm more excited about encouraging physicians, because I mean, I joke all the time about all the docs that I've worked with. I love them. And I came here, and I'm telling you, everybody, if you're listening or watching, he's got a serious setup here. My podcast is on Zoom. It's got nothing on this guy. Okay.
Yeah, whatever.
But seriously, like, you guys are like, you speak other languages. You're playing soccer tomorrow. Did I hear you say you're playing soccer? Yeah. Like, you have all these other incredible skills. You have kids, you have like so many things going on, and you help us with our health.
Yeah.
Like, it's fantastic. We should be living our best life, because really, like, we don't have that much time. We're here for a blip.
Yep.
We might as well make the most of it, right?
Yep. And I think it's that serving others is what drives a lot of us.
Yeah.
Most of us as physicians.
Yeah.
And the minute you can't serve that person, the minute that you're frustrated, the minute that you're unhappy to go to work, is the minute that you have to figure it out.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, life's short.
It's short.
And we want to live long.
And stop caring so much what other people think about you going on social media. I'm not talking to you specifically, but the conversation that I have with so many doctors, like, oh, I don't know, and I don't look good, or I won't sound good, or what will they think? Yeah. Ain't nobody thinking about you that much.
Yeah.
Number one.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
But also, we need to hear it. I joke all the time, and I say, if I was an MD, I'd have that tattooed across my forehead. I would be so dangerous. I would. Thank God I'm not. But really, like, you guys have gone through so much to get to where you are today. And I don't think enough people realize the sacrifice. So I only want for the physicians that I know and love and care about to, just be able to be happy and live the best life that they can, and be happy about the work that they're doing, because it's, we need you.
Yep. And they're enough. You are enough. So there you have it, the highlight episodes of 2024. And I wanted to recap those episodes for you just to have them, and also correct one of the episode numbers. And so in episode 81, you had the crazy medical story about Casey Means, who left a residency to pursue what she felt was the most important thing, and that's identify root cause analysis of disease. In episode 63 was a different episode. It was more of a live interview with at the IndeDocs conference in South Carolina with Dr. Marcelo Hochman. And that was interesting to hear some of the things that physicians feel are important in helping the movement of independent physicians in this country. In episode 59, we spoke to the doctor whisperer, Sharon Feckerty, who was an in-person interview, which was a fascinating interview, and how she helps physicians to decrease stress and decrease burnout, especially in independent practices. In episode 78, you heard me talk about the 10 healing, sorry, not the 10, that's the next one. In episode 78, you heard me talk about the physician side gigs and 10 things that you can do to help increase your revenue and generate wealth while you practice medicine. And episode 96 was about another replay episode about the healing factors and the Radical Remission Project, which describes the 10 healing factors that patients have used to heal themselves of cancer, metastatic cancer, and also to help prevent cancer as well. So happy New Year. I hope you found this helpful in your journey to finding out information on how to decrease stress, increase revenue as you practice independent of corporate controls. Happy New Year again.